Your brain evolved to compare yourself to about 150 people in your tribe. Now, you're comparing yourself to millions of people, carefully curated highlights every single day. So your brain evolved to compare yourselves to about 150 people in your tribe, but now you're comparing yourself to millions of people's carefully curated profiles and reels every single day. And it's not just making you feel inadequate. No, not just that. It's literally rewiring your sense of self worth in ways that would actually terrify evolutionary psychologists. Let's talk about why social comparison is destroying your mental health today. Welcome back to Huddle Psychology, where we get uncomfortably real about the stuff going on in your head. I'm Rahul Nair, and we are here to decode the psychology behind why we do the weird things we actually do. All right, so let's set up the problem. Social comparison is hardwired. It's nothing new. It is hardwired into human psyche, into human psychology. It's how we evaluate our progress, understand social norms, and motivate ourselves toward improvement. But social media has, in many ways, hijacked this system in really catastrophic ways. You're not comparing yourself to your actual peer group anymore. You're comparing your behind the scenes reality to everyone's curated performance across unlimited domains at infinite scale. Your friend's travel photos, for example, a stranger's body, an influencer's career, a celebrity's relationship. All of these trigger your comparison circuits that were designed for much simpler social comparison. And what is the result? Well, chronic inadequacy, anxiety about being behind in life, and the sense that everyone else has figured out something you haven't. And this isn't a personal failing, it's a predictable result of ancient psychology meeting modern technology. So let's understand the psychology for a few minutes behind all of this. Social comparison theory, developed by Leon Festinger in 1954, explains that we evaluate ourselves by comparing ourselves to others when objective measures are simply not available. This served essential evolutionary functions. Functions such as helping you understand if you're contributing enough to your tribe, choosing good life strategies, perhaps, and motivating self improvement. But the problem is that the system has got several built in problems and vulnerabilities that social media is exploiting. Let's go through them one by one. Firstly, is the upward versus downward comparison. Upward comparison, basically comparing to people better than you, can motivate improvement but often creates inadequacy. And downward comparison, basically comparing yourself to people worse than you, can boost your self esteem but creates complacency or maybe even schadenfreude. And we talked about that in a couple of videos prior. Social media overwhelmingly, however, exposes you to upward comparison because people usually share successes and not their failures. Secondly, reference group expansion. And by that, what I mean is that you evolve to compare yourself to your immediate community, people in similar circumstances with similar resources. But social media just destroys this natural limiting factor completely, blows it out of the water. Now you compare yourself to people with completely different advantages, contexts, and resources, which makes meaningful comparison impossible. Then comes the highlight reel versus behind the scenes. Your experience of your life is from the inside. Every moment, every doubt, every failure, your thoughts, your feelings, they're experienced from the inside. However, your experience of others' lives are from the outside, only what they choose to show. This creates a fundamentally unequal comparison conditions that make you feel inadequate by design. So that is the highlight reel versus the behind the scenes idea. The idea that you live your life from the inside, you experience your life from the inside, you experience others' lives from the outside, and which creates a fundamental unequal comparison condition which make you feel inadequate by design. Fourthly, domain multiplication. Pre-social media, back in the day, you might compare yourself to, say, a few domains, right? For example, relationships, or you compare careers, you compare physical appearance, a couple of domains of comparisons. Now you're exposed to unlimited comparison domains. Someone's travel life, someone else's productivity, another person's aesthetic, someone's spiritual practice, another's social life. You end up feeling behind in dozens of areas at the same time, simultaneously. And finally, the psychological cost. Research shows that heavy social media usage effectively correlates with depression, anxiety, and lower life satisfaction. The mechanism is very, very clear. Constant upward social comparison creates chronic dissatisfaction and a sense that you're not enough, regardless of your actual circumstances and achievements. So, how do you protect your mental health whilst living in a comparison saturated world? Allow me to offer you three strategies. Strategy number one: curate your inputs ruthlessly. By this, I mean unfollow all accounts that consistently make you feel inadequate, even if their content seems aspirational. Your comparison circuits just cannot make the difference, cannot distinguish between inspiration and inadequacy fuel. If following someone regularly makes you feel worse about yourself, remove them. Follow people whose lives are more similar to yours, who share struggles alongside successes, and who remind you that reality is little different from curated perfection, who remind you of reality of life rather than perfection. Second strategy, practice contextual comparison. By this, I mean when you catch yourself comparing, force contextual awareness. Ask, do I know this person's full circumstances? What advantages or resources might they have that I actually don't? What struggles might they have that are not visible to me? What have I edited out of my own online presentation? This does not eliminate comparison completely, but adds more, what shall I say, nuance that reduces its psychological harm. Third strategy, redirect to internal metrics. What I mean by this is develop your own progress markers that are not dependent on other people, on others. Instead of, am I more successful than my peers? Ask, am I growing compared to my past self? Am I better than yesterday, than today? Instead of asking, am I better than someone else? Instead of, am I as attractive as this influencer? Ask, do I feel healthy and comfortable in my own body? This shifts the reference point from external and uncontrollable reference points to internal and more meaningful ones. So, these are three strategies that you can use to protect your mental health. Curate your inputs ruthlessly. Two, practice contextual comparison by asking some important questions. Three, redirect to internal metrics that you can control and which are more meaningful rather than external uncontrollable metrics. Here's what's really, really important. You cannot logic your way out of comparison instincts. They are too deeply wired into your psyche. But you can manage your exposure and reframe your thoughts when comparison actually happens. So you can't logic your way out of it. It's too deeply wired into your system. You are evolved to make comparisons, as I mentioned earlier. However, if you manage your exposure and reframe your thoughts when comparison happens, then it is more healthier for you. Also recognize that some comparison is also useful. Comparing yourself to people slightly ahead of you in areas that you care about can show you some possible next steps that you might want to take yourself. The key is choosing this consciously. Choosing this consciously rather than being subjected to random comparison bombardment. That's the difference. And finally, understand that content creators absolutely know that comparison drives engagement. Platforms algorithmically amplify content that triggers comparison because it keeps you scrolling. Your inadequacy is basically and literally part of their business model. Knowing this doesn't eliminate it, does not eliminate the effects, but it certainly helps you take it less personally. So, having said that, here's your homework for the week. Do a social media audit this week. Notice which accounts or types of content consistently make you feel worse about yourself. Unfollow or mute at least 5 accounts that trigger negative comparison inside you. Then notice how it feels to scroll without that particular inadequacy trigger. Try it on for size. Also, pay attention to your internal dialogue when you actually compare. What story are you telling yourself about what someone else's success actually means to you? Focus on that internal dialogue. Listen to the noise, the voice inside you. What is it telling you when you're making comparisons? All right. So that is about the issue of comparisons in the age of social media. And next week, we deal with the idea of shadow work, the parts of yourself you're afraid to acknowledge. We'll explore Jungian psychology, projection, and why integrating your dark side might be the most important work you ever do for your mental health. But that's next week. Coming back to today's topic, drop a comment. What types of content or accounts most trigger your comparison instincts? How do you manage social comparison in a healthy way? Let's share some strategies that actually help. As always, do visit our blog huddlepsychology.substack.com for write ups on various ideas that we discuss. If you'd like to talk about any of these topics on a one-to-one basis, hit me up at rahul@huddlepsychology.com. And before I leave you, let me tell you and inform you that my first book is now available across all Amazon marketplaces in Kindle format. And in the UK and the US, it's available in paperback editions as well. The book's title is Already Home, Advaita Vedanta for Everyday Living. As the name of the book suggests, it is about Advaita Vedanta and how we can use it to improve our everyday lives. It's my effort at making Advaita Vedanta more accessible to as many people as possible. I'd be immensely grateful for your patronage and support. So I look forward to your patronage and support for my first book. Having said that, until next time, keep growing and keep huddling. Ciao for now.